Everybody ready? Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jay Parmley, the Executive Director of the South Carolina Democratic Party, and we're just going to go through a number of things today, give you some numbers, some information that we have as of this afternoon, and then we'll take some questions at the end. That works. So when the DNC under the leadership of President Biden moved South Carolina to the first in the nation position, it was to make sure that black voters, the backbone of our Democratic Party, had the ability to make their voices heard first and loudest. So our party set forth months ago, beginning to meet voters where they are. So we know today that South Carolina is making history. We're going to talk about the early vote numbers in just a few minutes, but they show exactly how excited South Carolinians are to be the first in the nation. This primary is entirely unprecedented for us. We've never had a contested, but yet uncompetitive primary in our state like this before. That is why we at the state party, and working with the Democratic National Committee and partners all throughout the state, made sure that our voters had the information they needed to make their voices heard. We launched a We Go First bus tour that has traveled all over the state. We'll talk about that in just a second. We have, just this week alone, sent 521,000 text messages to Democratic voters across the state, educating them about today's election. We have made 675,442 phone calls, both live and automated. And as of today, just over the last 3 days, we fielded 866 phone calls on our voter protection hotline. And if you take the entirety of the early voting period, we have talked to 2,447 voters across the state on our voter protection hotline, asking us questions about where to vote, about the early voting process. That's really been the bulk of those phone calls. This primary is really the latest signal from our president and our national party that Democrats are not just parachuting in at the very last minute to ask for voters from communities of color. We have been making a sustained strategic investment to reach these voters where they are and to earn their support for the long haul. And the person who has led that effort for us over the last 3 months, is Lindsey Green, who's going to outline all of the work we've been doing, and then I'm going to talk about the early vote numbers, and then we'll take questions. Lindsey?
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsey Green, and I am the South Carolina Democratic Party GOTV Director for the 2024 First in the Nation primary. For the past 3 weeks, we have used every tool at our disposal to make sure that South Carolinians are fired up and ready to cast their ballot today. Our We Go First statewide tour has seen us have a presence in all 46 counties, rural areas, retirement communities, HBCUs, and more, resulting in over 115 events with the people who matter most in this historic primary, our voters. We have never done anything like this before, and I can't stress enough, as Jay mentioned, how unprecedented this historic tour has been, and also how meaningful it's been for Democrats in places from Pickens County to Marion County to Georgetown to everywhere else we've been, to hear from party leaders and national surrogates and know that Democrats care about their issues and they're coming to South Carolina to listen to their issues. Our events, whether rural or urban, have had packed houses and full seats. These events have had anywhere from 30 to 250 people. Places like Allendale, where it was standing room only, to Manning, South Carolina, where folks came out, packed a tent, and had standing room in the back despite rainy conditions earlier in that day, to a barbershop in Orangeburg, where more chairs had to be put out to accommodate the audience. Everywhere we went, we saw enthusiasm at this historic opportunity. Over the phone, on the doorstep, at community-led events, South Carolina Democrats and our team met voters wherever they were to talk to them about this primary. Counties statewide also hosted volunteer kickoffs at the beginning of the month. They stood up weekly phone banking opportunities. We did a tremendous amount of party building as well, and building out new infrastructure for our county parties and our state party throughout this process. This entire tour was about centering the voters who make up our extremely diverse electorate. We went to county after county, putting Democrats and our voters front and center, making sure they knew the state party is committed to making sure they have all the information that they need to vote and have a voice in this process. When the polls close tonight at 7, if you haven't voted, please go vote. The first thing South Carolinians and the rest of the country need to think about is that history is being made here in the Palmetto State. I know we're going to talk about numbers, and I know we've talked about numbers a lot on this campaign trail. I hear it all the time. I do want to emphasize that there are stories that are not found in numbers. And that is the story of our voters who have time and time again picked the Democratic nominee for president. That is a record that no other state has. It's the story of our voters who have come out time and time again and have come out on this tour to be with us, to share their enthusiasm, to talk about their issues. And these stories are worth telling because they are the voice of our voters. In 2012, when Democrats had the sitting president, there was no primary. There is not an effort or election or turnout number to compare this primary to. Instead, what this has done is what this primary has done for the first time has created a new benchmark for us, a new model for the next First in the Nation primary. And for the first time, as we say, that we're very proud to say, Black voters, rural voters, Southern voters will have their say first for the President of the United States. Before the polls close, and I can say this without any doubt because we felt it on the ground and we saw it everywhere we went, this primary has been a success, and we're extremely proud of the efforts from the party and certainly of my tremendous GOTV team who have been all throughout the state in different regions and every county. This is successful because we've reached voters we haven't reached in a long time. It's successful because we were able to go to places we haven't been to in a long time. It's successful because South Carolinians know more than ever just how valuable their vote is. They created this opportunity to be first in the nation, and we're very excited to see them get that chance to cast their ballot in it. And this has been successful because all eyes have been on South Carolina the past few weeks, and now the entire country knows that the Palmetto State has something to say. We already know that South Carolina picks presidents, and they're going to have their say again this evening. And now I will turn it back over to Jay to talk more specifically about those numbers.
So I just can't thank Lindsey and our team enough. This is the third presidential primary that I've been executive director of the South Carolina Democratic Party. Two different stints, but the third time around. And I can say with complete certainty, this is unprecedented, and the work we've done really pales in comparison to the work that may have been done by the party in the past in this election. So we got the final early vote numbers this morning. We have spent some time looking at them. And there's a couple things that really stand out. As you may or may not know, as of this morning, when you take the early vote plus the almost 3,500 absentee ballots that have been returned to date or before the numbers were released this morning. 51,710 people have cast a ballot early. Culminated yesterday with the largest number of 10,929 people voting before early vote ended last night at 6 o'clock. Couple things that stand out in this number. 76.5 of everyone who cast an early vote are black. That's 13% higher than the same early vote numbers in 2020. And this was a full-on competitive Democratic presidential primary. 6,141 of these people had never voted in a Democratic presidential primary before. Small rural counties that are often left out of this mix, we are seeing some impressive early vote numbers. For instance, in Allendale, which is truly one of the smallest counties in our state, we've had 10 times the number of people vote in 2024 that voted early in 2020. There are 10 counties, including Allendale, that have surpassed their 2020 numbers, most of them rural. A couple of larger counties, but the Allendales and the Andersons and Berkeley and Dorchester and Horry, Jasper County, Orangeburg, Saluda, Union, and Williamsburg, all surpassing 2020 early vote numbers. An important distinction, too, about 2020 to 2024. 2020, we had what was then called, and this is important, in-person absentee voting for a month. This time we've had complete unrestricted early voting for 2 weeks. And so these numbers, just with the early vote, tell us that the work we've done on the ground, as well as the campaigns, we've seen this uptick as a percentage of black voters, and that's encouraging. And I'm not I don't have a crystal ball, but to know what the final numbers are going to be. But from this analysis with early vote, we are extremely pleased as we've watched the turnout all across the state over the last 2 weeks. And I am happy to take some questions. If I can answer them, I will. And I don't know a lot more than I've told you about the early vote numbers, but I'll be happy to try.
Jay, how much of the higher percentages is kind of the change in the voter laws, where we've allowed for more early voting as opposed to you needed to fill one of the 13 excuses?
Well, Joe, let me just tell you this number real quickly, because I'm going to answer this 2 ways. Still the majority, and I can get the number for you, are over 65, which never needed an excuse. They could go vote under the old system. That was the excuse. They're just automatic. So I think it's easier. I think there's no question. We don't have to fill out paperwork at the polls, but to certify that we had one of those, 26 excuses to vote early. So that's clearly easier. It makes it easier for us. I mean, we just say, go vote, go vote early. We used to have to say people, we couldn't even call it to vote early because we'd get in trouble, because when they walked in to vote, they'd be told that they're voting in-person absentee. So we had to say that, go vote in-person absentee early. But it's made it easier, and I think the change in the law has helped. But I don't think that the change in the law specifically is a reason for the numbers we're seeing, but I think it's helpful. I don't have any way to prove it. I mean, either way. I just know that we like early voting. It's a lot easier for us to talk about. We have a set time. We know where the early voting locations are. It's easy, and it has been super easy for us as we travel the state. I mean, I was out yesterday in Williamsburg County and Georgetown County and Marion County, and it's just been super easy to say. You've got until 6 o'clock to go vote. No excuse. Get off your rear and go vote. So it's been helpful, but I can't quantify it. Yes.
Okay, just real quick for clarification. I know it's different rules compared to 2020. That 51,000 number, how does that compare? Just
77,000 voted either in person or by absentee ballot in 2020. In fact, it's 77,217. So, and I would also note, yes, it was a slightly different voting system. I don't view it as much different because we had a month to tell people they could vote in person with checking off one of the excuses. Now we have two full weeks with unencumbered excuses, and so I would also put a caveat on that and say, listen, that's 30 days of excuse absentee voting 4 years ago versus 2 weeks of just flat out early voting now, and our numbers are impressive this isn't even spin. They're just impressive for a non-competitive primary.
and then just one more real quick.
Sure.
The 6,000 first-time
Yeah.
Democratic voters, you don't have party affiliation breakdown on that.
No, just everybody, just to level set a second, we don't register by party in South Carolina. So this is why I get in trouble every time I use my hand. So we don't register by party. So the only way I can look at people is to see what their voting participation may have been in the past. And all we know is that these 6,000 people have never voted in a Democratic presidential primary before. Our folks are a little busy today, but I'll dig into that a little more. That's pretty out of 52,000. That's a pretty encouraging number too. And I don't know anything more about them right now than there's 6,100 who voted early or by absentee ballot that have never participated in a Democratic presidential primary before.
Do you have an age breakdown?
Joe, not yet. I thought you were going to ask me that, and I'll get back to you. No, I'm interested. Hold on. Let me look and see if I have anything else on it, but I don't have that yet. No, I don't have the age breakdown on those yet. Yep.
On the voter participation.
Sure.
You mentioned that 76.5, if I got that number right, of the early vote is black. I'm looking at a Pew survey that measured Democratic leanings in the state, and it's saying 78% of African Americans lean Democrat. So I mean, while these numbers are impressive, it doesn't seem like the party's grown. If I'm using
No, you need to go look at you need to look at our regular Democratic performance numbers. This is significant. I mean, when we only 4 years ago had it's going by 13%. So even if our participation, black participation, I mean, just because someone is an African American and they have a history or proclivity or propensity to vote Democratic doesn't mean they're actually going to do it. And so, just like white people, I mean, it's all the same. So we are constantly trying to turn out voters. The fact that the African American percentage grew in this primary among our early votes, that's a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal is because 4 years ago, many of you may have been here, we had multiple candidates running. We had each of those campaigns were doing a lot of organizing work, some of them for months and months and months. And so that's what I look at right now by these numbers and that growth is the fact that people were black or white, they were ready to go vote. They were ready to vote early. And whether it's our work on the ground or the campaign or some other way, I think this shows strength. I've read a lot of what people have been saying, and the fact that and writing, all without knowing. I'll take a poll any day, but I have real numbers of people who turned out to vote, and we grew the black percentage of that vote over the last 4 years, and we'll see what the final numbers are tonight on that. But I'm pretty impressed with the early vote. Yeah.
Jay, can you address the voter consolidation or the
Sure.
consolidation of precincts and what the party's doing to?
Yeah, happy to. Just a refresher, because this sometimes people forget. Our state law in primaries gives each county great flexibility to change voting locations. I really don't like to use the word consolidation because it's not permanent. It is a grouping of precincts together to vote in a different location than they typically vote in a regular election. We face this all the time in South Carolina in primaries. The general election's a little different. State law has a time specific that they can change a voting location, and that's helpful. So we have known for several weeks, and we've been tracking this, that a number of counties consolidated, even though I don't like to use the term, that they grouped these precincts together. And part of the reason we've been so vigilant in texting and calling is to let people know you need to check to see where your precinct is, where your voting location is for this election only. Now, there were 3 counties that had significant collapsing of these precincts and these voting locations: Lexington, Horry, and Richland. And so Richland, their final update was last night, which they are perfectly allowed to do. And when we got the information, we loaded it up. We have texted as many people in those 3 counties, but in particular in Richland County today, and robocalled as many as we can as well, just to let them know to go to iwillvote.com to check their voting location. We take it seriously. We do our best to get information out, but it's not just here. It's in every county. Not every county did this, but many did. And I would, it's a little more prevalent or seen this time because, in other elections or in 2020, it may have been other counties that group precincts together differently. So we've known about it. We've been working as hard as we can to make sure people know where to go vote today. And the other thing we are doing, just so you know, is if we get a complaint or a call on our voter protection hotline telling us that there was an issue in a precinct, we transmit that very quickly to the state. We work with the county election commissions. And when this is over, we will take that list to Howard Knapp, the state director, and we will have a conversation. But I want to note, we do this every primary. This is not new. So it may be new to some, but it's not new to the way we operate.
Those precincts
On our voter protection hotline telling us that there was an issue in a precinct, we transmit that very quickly to the state. We work with the county election commissions. And when this is over, we will take that list to Howard Knapp, the state director, and we will have a conversation. But I want to note, we do this every primary. This is not new. So it may be new to some, but it's not new to the way we operate.
Do you know if those precincts were concentrated in certain types of areas? Or?
No, it's. Are you asking me if you think it's in a county, if they were concentrated in a certain area?
Predominantly black districts?
No, it's. I'll just give you for example. I mean, I live in a predominantly white precinct. I was grouped together with 5 other predominantly white precincts today. I had to drive about 3.5 minutes farther to vote in the city, but we'll go back through that list. I haven't found yet that is the case. That there's a disproportionate number of precincts for black voters or white voters, but we're going through all that, and we'll address that with the Election Commission when this is over.
Jay, we talk about the turnout. I know it's still early, but you're pretty enthusiastic about. Does this help maybe put this narrative to rest about Democratic enthusiasm or lack thereof that we've been hearing?
Well, I can tell you this, it should, but y'all are going to do what you're going to do when the final numbers come in. But here's the thing, and we've been trying to say this, Gavin, for 2 weeks and 3 weeks. 115 events. I was in, I don't know, about 20 of those, maybe more. And we're talking, put this in perspective. I was in Andrews, South Carolina yesterday. It's 2,400 people live in Andrews, and we had about 25 people. Well, we did have 25 people, the mayor, local press. Everybody was there, and the stop, I mean, I was the draw, and that's not a draw. So when I go to Andrews and get 25 people, or I go to Bluffton and we get 200, Bluffton, or we go to any number of these places, what we've seen on the ground is a completely different narrative than is getting reported in the national press, and that is we've seen crowds. And y'all, we did a bus tour. Granted, it was during COVID, but we finished the 2020 election doing a tour in not even as many stops as we did on this one, and it was the end of COVID. But I can just tell you the crowds are different, the excitement is different. Our county party leadership has felt it. We had 100 people this morning in Greenwood, 100 people for the county party breakfast on election day. They never get 100 people. And so, I mean, they do. Bill Kimler is a great county chair, and the Greenwood County Democratic Party is doing a lot of good work. But the feel on the ground has been very different throughout all of this. And this is the story. In an uncompetitive primary, contested but uncompetitive, we have seen very solid early vote, very solid. I mean, I'll take this number any day of the week. And we have seen an increase in black vote as a percentage. We have seen increase of folks on the ground, and it has felt on the ground like we were headed for this. And we'll see what the final vote is, but everybody has, I feel, honestly, I'm exhausted, but I feel really good about our efforts and about those early vote numbers. So I hope I'm going to feel good about the other. Sure, of course.
Very quickly. Again, I just want to emphasize there is not a data point to actually compare this turnout to. You can't compare it to 2020 because that was a highly competitive primary election. In 2012, when we had the incumbent president, we didn't have a primary. So this is a whole new data point. This is a completely new set of numbers that we're going to have. So I just want to emphasize that that comparison game doesn't exactly translate to what this primary is, and I think that's just important to note.
Yeah.
What about 26? What number will signal success? What number?
Oh, it's not a number. Let me just get out of the numbers game. I mean, really, I mean it. We were picked, and I'm going to say this every day, we were picked to go first because our voters give a damn. And our voters have turned out repeatedly, and we picked presidents. And we have demonstrated through all of this activity and through our strong early vote numbers that we were damn well deserving of this, and that our voters are enthusiastic and energized. And if I could, when you go first, there's nothing else to compare it to. So I can't give you a number. No one's been able to give us a number. There's no even like election to compare it to. So there's not one.
Last question.
How will
we know if the effort to bring out more voters, to show that enthusiasm, how will we know how to characterize it after the final numbers are in? And how will we see those final numbers?
Sure. Well, you're going to get the final numbers. We're going to know what the turnout is. But it's you're just going to have to look at these data points points, and you're going to see the growth. For instance, like right now, all I can tell you today, as we're standing here right now, is what our early vote numbers were. They're strong. We grew the black percentage, the black vote percentage grew. All these things we care about and we look at are really important. And, you know, there are primaries have lots of data points that you can point to over time, but the deal here is it's going to be strong turnout. We've had strong enthusiasm on the ground. We've grown our data points already, and we've seen our voters engaged in a way that everybody was just sort of hypothesizing might happen. So now we've seen it, and we know it, and we're happy about it, and we're going to continue to be happy about it. And this is going to have been ultimately very successful for Democratic voters in South Carolina. And we are going to continue to pick our nominee, and we're going to continue to put our nominee on the best possible footing for the general election. And that is success. That is success right there for us.
All right, that's it. We're done.
I know. Hold on.
You said there's no time frame for this consolidation of precincts.
Sure.
There's no time frame for this primary, but the South Carolina Election Commission says there's a 60-day limit for this primary. That's what they told me today, that people should have been notified 60 days.
Oh, so the general, all right, so here's, generally, that is all true. But remember that they have the right and the ability in a primary. Counties do. This is not us. This is not the Democratic Party. This is County Election Commission. Have a right to make those adjustments almost up until the end. In normal processes where they change, Beaufort County has whole new precincts, whole new ones because they grew so much. So new precincts got redrawn and have different places. Those were all put in place by law a long time ago. I'm talking about election day changes or very close to it. My only comment is if anybody has moved a precinct or a voting location that is outside of the law or outside of the parameters that the state statute has, we'll address those with the State Election Commission on the back end. But as of right now, I've talked to our lawyers, I've talked to everybody involved, and we haven't done anything yet. I haven't seen anything that I know of that is not in compliance with state law. It sucks in some places, but I haven't seen it, but I don't know the answer if that is everyone. So we'll look at it. I mean, we were still updating things as of this morning to try to let voters know. So I've got many people looking at this. So I'm not here to front for the State Election Commission or the County Election Commission, but we have a good working relationship and we'll address any problems we see after the fact. Does that help? Anything else? I appreciate you all very much. Results, go to scvotes.gov. And let me also note results. This doesn't matter to you all, but it matters to me. Remember, the primary is about delegate count for the Democratic Party. So you will see on the State Election Commission website, they will report results and they'll do a breakdown by congressional district. It really doesn't mean anything to you all except a candidate has to get 15% of the vote in a congressional district to be awarded a delegate to the national convention. They also have to get 15% of the vote statewide at least to get a delegate to the national convention that's selected at large. So while the reporting will be by county, while the reporting will be by state, for those of you who follow SC Votes in the past for election results, you will see for us that it will report by congressional district as well, and that's why we do that. And tomorrow, I don't think we're going to have a hard time figuring it out, but by tomorrow, we'll announce the delegate number. We probably won't be able to announce the delegate numbers tonight, but we always give ourselves in our plan 24 hours to do the delegate calculations, but we'll probably have those done tonight as well, and you can probably report where our 65 delegates are going. So,
Is 65 or 55?
well, it's 65 total. There are 10 at large, so it's 55. The 10 at large are what we call automatic delegates and technically have a right to be for whomever they wish to be, but I know where our 10 are going, so we won't have any hesitation with that.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else?
Thanks, all.
I don't know whose this is, but I keep my hood